Good morning. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome back, Chief Neil Ossenheimer from the Bucyrus Police Department. Welcome back, Chief.
Thank you for having me back.
Always glad to have you back here. You asked me before I went on air, how do you not get on here? And I said, my mother's side of the family was Sicilian.
And I said, so was my grandpa.
So we know what that means if you're on the bad list here, but we won't go down that because you are a law enforcement person, so we will do that. I thought we'd start it off with a little humor. My understanding is you've got a report from 2023, some things that you'd like to kind of share with our listeners this morning.
I do. Every year we do a year-end report, and I'm actually going to council later tonight.
Okay.
And I'm going to present my report to them. But I figured I'll bring it up. It's always something nice to talk to or talk about. In 2023, we had 19 full-time officers, 5 full-time dispatchers, which is actually 3 officers and 1 dispatcher short from what we're supposed to have. We're allotted 22 and 6.
Okay.
So we've been doing, making do with a little less than what, we've traditionally always had. I mean, I can remember maybe a 6-month stretch in the last 20-some years where we actually had 22 officers. So, I mean, we've probably ever been at that level, but usually 21, 20. But right now we're below that. We're actually at 18 right now because we had another officer take a job closer to his home here right at the first of the year. So currently we have 18 officers and 5 dispatchers, which is about 80% capacity of what we're supposed to have.
So you're always looking for officers, so...
Yeah, it seems like it, yeah.
But I'm just saying, saying this out to the public so they'll realize that we can always use good officers.
Mm-hmm. Right, and just an interesting, going through my manpower, my ranks.
Okay.
There's they call it the deferred retirement option plan or DROP through public safety. It's basically where you can retire but then continue to work for up to 8 years. But after 8 years, you have to then retire permanently. I have 5 officers currently in that, including all 3 of my captains, 1 lieutenant and 1 patrolman, and then I have another lieutenant that can retire anytime he wants. So of the 18 left, it's basically 1/3 of the department can be out the door anytime that they want. So I mean, that's a big chunk.
Well, that can be precarious. That's why we need to get our officers. I understand that.
Yep. And then as of the people that are left, I think that I have 2 patrol officers on my staff that have over 20 years, and then 1 is between 10 and 15, and all the rest have 3 years or less. So it's like we have a lot of guys at the retirement end of the spectrum, and we have a lot of officers at basically the new hire spectrum there, and there's just very little in between. I mean, we've lost those people over the years, and you can't replace a 10-year guy with a 1-year guy,
no.
And that's what we've been doing here for, I don't know, the 20 years that I've worked with this department. So it's I just thought it was kind of neat when you look at the dynamics of our department, and like I said, if like those 6 guys fall off, I mean, there's going to be very little seniority coming up and to fill in supervisor, detective, training, any of those ranks that require a lot of experience.
Yes.
So it's like when those guys are gone, I mean, hopefully we can keep the people that we've got long enough to get some of those guys trained to step into those roles, hopefully within the next 4 to 6 years.
Right.
That's the goal.
That's the goal.
We got to keep what we have. There's just no way around that. In 2023, we handled 9,724 calls, and that's with, like I said, most of the time with 2 guys on the road and 1 dispatcher. So that's a lot of calls.
Yes,
I didn't do the average per day, but I do know that in January, I think we had 801 calls, which comes out to about 25 calls a day. And in 2022, we had 9,767, so we were almost right on par with what we had in 2022. I mean, and I would say that when you look at our crime numbers, I mean, some of the stuff was up, some of the stuff was down. But for the most part, I mean, stuff has been staying largely the same. Kind of just begs the question of what could we do if we were full staffed? You know what I mean?
Yes.
If we can keep stuff the same, it's like,
Right.
I mean, if we had 4 more guys, I mean, there's a big part of me that thinks that we could really drive these numbers down lower.
Right.
Let's see, we have our Bloodhound Canine Ellie she's continuing to serve with Lieutenant Wolf. Capone and Wireman are still out there on the streets. They had 48 felony narcotic arrests as the team, which I thought that was a pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good
statistic.
amount, isn't it? Yeah.
I thought it was really good. And then, just a reminder, we have our fundraiser, our ongoing fundraiser of like the plush Ellies and plush Capones. Like I said, those are guaranteed not to drool. So you can stop at the police department and pick up one of those if you haven't already, or if you would like one.
And you don't have to feed them either.
You don't have to feed them; they actually will just sit right there.
Yeah.
And if you brought the real Capone home, you'd probably be bouncing around your house like a kangaroo.
Yes, it would be. They can be kind of on the hyper side, can't they?
Yes, they can, and yes, he is. We have retired officer John Seif. He is now working for the Bucyrus City Schools as the school security officer there,
Okay.
which is that's been a great thing for our department. It's been a great partnership between the city schools and us. Now we have 2 officers on the SRT team. It's Lieutenant Wolf and Officer Graves. We're looking at possibly sending 2 more because we're allowed to have 4 on the team. So once we have a couple guys, you have to have a minimum of 2 years to get on. 2 years of seniority to get on the SRT team, and once we have a couple guys that are going to hit that benchmark this year, and we're going to try to get them on the team, but really we're just waiting to do that. Let's see, we had our car show was June 10th. We had 554 cars last year, and our best in show was a 1967 Chevrolet Chevelle. It was a pretty sharp car.
I'm sorry to say, but I actually remember it. That just tells you that I'm getting quite on the age side. We'll just leave it alone on that one.
Yeah, it looks like our total felonies was up by 3. I mean, like I said, that's not like I said, a lot of the crime stats, are remaining relatively static across the board. Like I said, a little bit up, a little bit down, but for the most part, everything's been on par. Now we've got like I said, I'm not going to go over all the mileage and stuff on our cars. Like I said, then the other thing is we look forward to continuing to serve the citizens in 2024, and we're going to do our best to work within our budgeted money and be fiscally conservative like we have been in the past.
Right.
To do our part to, like I said, just help the city get by. I know it's a tough time right now. And then, like I said, we're 1 dispatcher and 4 officers under our authorized staffing levels. So we're actually doing I think a pretty good job with what we have. Yeah,
you have limited resources, and you're being good stewards of those resources. This is what I read out of everything you just mentioned in there. If I could do a summation, and that's what I would say.
Right.
You obviously can use more officers, and like you said, move some of these ones up over time, because you've got some that's going to be outgoing, and you don't want to have a lot of gaps. So I can see what your concern would be there.
Right, and like I said, this is not a job that you just pick it up and learn it in
No,
6 months.
no.
It's a 5-year, 10-year commitment to becoming a good police officer, and it really does take that time. And there's really no substitute from experience.
No, absolutely not. That's something. And by the way, I should mention, by the time people see this up on the podcast, we are pre-recording this on Tuesday, February 6th. I think I got my date correct.
Yes, you did.
And I have to do that because we do so many things that, sometimes we've got a little lag time. So what the chief has told us today, he's going to be presenting, or has already, by the time you hear this or see this, it's already been presented at council. And Chief Neil Ossenheimer, I want to thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add?
I do. I have just some crime statistics here. So I'm not going to get into everything, but it's like we talk about like the quality of life type crimes.
Right.
Our burglary and B&E complaints, we had 40 this year, which seems like a lot. Was actually down from 41. But if you go back in time a little bit to 2018, we actually had 87 burglaries. Wow. And if you go back to 2012, we had 348.
Ooh.
So, like I said, I remember working through those times. It's like you showed up at people's house, they had, their home broken into, their lives turned upside down, and the best thing you could do was take a report because you had another one to go do. That was at the height of the heroin epidemic, and that was before we passed the first safety forces levy. And like I said, crime was a lot higher back then. Like I said then, I think I did the math, and I think we had around 14 officers. And if you take 14 of 22, it's about 65% capacity. So 65%, I mean, you can't keep up with everything that's coming in. But some other stuff, like I said, in 2023 we had 277 theft complaints. Just put it in perspective, in 2015 we had 423. And then back in, we had 490 of them back in 2012. So, I mean, a lot of these crimes are cut in half. The same thing in 2012, like if you could talk about car break-in reports, we had 186 of those in 2012, and we had 24 of them in 2023. Mm-hmm. So I think, like I said, with the 18 officers that we've had, we are doing a pretty good job of keeping these crime numbers low. But my biggest fear is that if we can't keep our people, then we're gonna go back to these high crime, high theft. Like I said, it's like those were tough years back in that 2012, 2013. Yes. I mean, not only was heroin off the hook, but I mean the crime was just out of control.
Well, it looks like the numbers are going the right way. So like you said, you just need manpower right now.
Correct.
And you need to get some people, as I would say, they need to get some age on them in that performance of the position, because like you said, you just can't throw somebody new into these. There's so many variables in police work.
Right. And like I said, the other thing is we just need to keep what we've got. I mean, we can't afford, to keep losing them and to keep hiring and training brand new people over and over again.
Yeah. It becomes a vicious cycle, so I understand that.
It is absolutely a vicious cycle, and it seems like once you get into that, it's really hard to get out.
Yes.
And I was really hoping that after last year, when we got back up to 19, that that we was going to be on cruise control and we could really work on getting some of these numbers down. But it's I don't know, the way things are looking right now, I don't know if that's going to be the case or not.
Yeah. Well, you can do the best that you can with what you have to work with and the manpower you got to work with. It's that simple. And the resources. It's a matter of stewardship of resources. And I know you guys do a fine job.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to wrap us on that, if you don't mind. He's over here shaking his head, so he says, yeah, I can wrap up now. I got all my stats out. By the way, all this was quite encouraging today. And I want to thank Chief Neil Ossenheimer, Bucyrus Police Department, for being the guest on the podcast. We hope to see you back again soon.
So I'll be here.
Okay.
Just let me know when.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dave.